Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. It's wonderful to see such a nice big group for today's Community Edition setup session. Um, we've been doing these for the past few weeks. Oh, I see a large message in there that maybe I can address in a moment. Um, but we've been doing these setup sessions covering a number of topics related to Hub's Community Edition over the last few weeks, including following some of the guides that the Hub's team, of which I am a member, and the community have released for the many different ways that you can host Community Edition. In case anyone is missing the context here, this February, Mozilla announced that Hubs, Mozilla Hubs will be shut down on May 31st, 2024. However, Community Edition and Hubs' open source nature means that it can have a life outside of Hubs, and Community Edition is a way for you to host your own version of Hubs completely independently of Mozilla. So this will be the best option moving forward for folks who want to stand up their own instances and collaborate with other community members to keep the project going. Um, in previous weeks, let me actually just bring up our YouTube. I think I can go YouTube. Let me see. So in previous weeks, I'm just showing the YouTube channel. We followed the quick start guide 3 weeks ago for how to set up a kind of a first look instance of Community Edition, not production ready, but getting your feet wet with Community Edition and Kubernetes, which is the new hosting paradigm that many folks might be getting um, familiar with for the first time. Then the week after that, I believe we followed Fabian Benetou's tutorial for how to host Community Edition on OVH. And he also followed this quick start guide. But instead of hosting it on Google Cloud, Fabian showed how you can host it on a more GDPR compliant platform like OVH. And then last week we had Alex Griggs hop in and show us how he hosts Community Edition on a number of different services using his Helm chart. So Alex was one of our documentation awardees, and he wrote an open source version of, I should say, in many ways, an improvement above the Community Edition instance set up by or code base set up by the Hubs team, which he continues to maintain as a public resource. So Alex's differs from kind of the official way of doing Community Edition, but it's a great resource to check out. And so today I want to hop back to week one, this tutorial that we went over on February 28th, and go from and talk about a few considerations to get our default kind of quick hacky instance to a more production ready instance. And I wanted to show a few things today. First, I wanted to show how you can add a Sketchfab or a Tenor API API key to your stack. These are kind of features that many people expect when they come to a Hubs instance, is the integration with Sketchfab or with the Tenor GIF system from Google, and so we'll go over that. Um, we're also going to go over a how to whitelist other domains so that you could potentially call an external API through, and we'll be configuring it directly through our deployment. In the past, anyone who had used Hub's Cloud would have been able to configure these permissions in the admin panel. However, with Community Edition, we have to do this straight into the deployment. So there are a couple of other considerations, and it's a different process than anyone who had used Hub's Cloud. And then finally, we'll go over how to add a custom client, a custom version of Hubs to a Community Edition instance and begin making some customizations. I wanted to chat a little bit about an issue that we've noticed with the near Spark pod, um, which we use in hubs to create these links to external websites. I want to touch a little bit about that issue when we get to deploying a custom client, and maybe implement a custom feature for creating a fallback for that if that near Spark pod is having some trouble. So that's my plan for today. If time allows, I see Rithik is here. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about persistent volumes. We can give it a try. I, yeah, we'll see. It's still, I'm still having a little bit of trouble, which is why I haven't officially released a tutorial update on that. But persistent volumes, if we have time, we'll get to at the very end. So think of today's tutorial as a little bit of odds and ends, trying to cover a few different things from here and there about yeah, about using hubs. Uh, any questions? I saw there was one large message in here from Bufflehead. I'll just repost my question here that I sent to Michael Moran. This looks like maybe it was from Hoppy. Um, I need to leave immediately, but I had one thing that is still kind of unclear for me that would be lovely to cover at some point. The database and tables, like the fact that you have to create a database yourself, running migrations, and if it is possible to use your existing Hubs Cloud RDS from the old AWS templates. Not sure if that can be passed along in the session, but it's something. Okay. Um, so this, I think, deserves its own setup session. I think it sounds like Hoppy is wanting to reuse the database structure from Hub's Cloud on Community Edition. Um, and I can think of a few unknowns for me right now about giving a definitive answer. I know there are tutorials that have been written by the community and some processes for how to automate the data transfer process from a community edition, from a Hubs Cloud instance to a community edition instance. However, in terms of manually just using an existing database for another stack, I'm not sure at this point if it's as simple as that. Um, so I think that deserves its own setup session, and it's on my list of other topics that we might cover in the lead up to May 31st. Cool. Any questions about that? Everything makes sense? Are
I think so.
Okay. Just wanted to also get proof of life. Make sure y'all were still there. Cool. Some emojis.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Still alive.
Wonderful. Okay. So let's start with kind of what we're working with right now. Oh, Jua, I'm a little confused. Community Edition and the Community Edition cloud repos. Um, Maybe we can go into this a little bit more when we're talking about deploying a custom client. However, can you, Jua, can I ask for a bit of clarification there? Are you talking about the Community Edition versus Hubs Cloud, or are you referring to something else when you say the CE Cloud repos?
Um,
Okay, you'll get back to me on it. That's fine. All right, I just took a quick sip of water and we can hop into things. So for today's tutorial, we're going to be using the instance that we had set up a few weeks ago. And if you remember on this instance, it's following this quick start tutorial. And at the end of that week, we basically had an instance running on Google Cloud with a DNS and SMTP on AWS. And we were able to get in. Basically, we deployed the stack, we were able to connect, and we were able to issue certificates for the stack so that anyone else could also connect and connect to Dialog. So this stack is currently running at devmoran.com. In fact, let me make a room for us to maybe hop into as we're testing today. I'm going to keep talking in this main room, but if anyone wants to hop over there while we test, I'll be kind of switching back and forth between this. But you can see when this stack, pretty freshly created, it doesn't have any customization. It actually doesn't have any data imported. It's just kind of this blank void. If I go to the admin panel on here, we can see that under the setup side of the admin, there isn't any field for server settings. Anyone who's familiar with Hub's Cloud would be familiar with a tab in here for you to configure, number one, those API keys, and then number two, those content security policies that allow you to allow the server to connect to an external database, not just a server, but the client as well, to connect to an external URL. So that's missing from this. So we actually need to do this directly in our deployment specification. Now here, I've just have a copy of the community edition, or sorry, the Hub's Cloud repository. Let me actually bring that up. I'll share these resources we're going through. And in my code editor here, I'm inside of the community edition directory. So I'm going to go back to the renderhcce.sh script, which when we run this, it basically cycles through our hcce.yam file and spits out this hcce.yaml file. It also adds some tokens that we need to use, but that's largely what it accomplishes. And if you remember back to a couple weeks ago, we skipped over lines 39 and 40 here. Is everyone able to see my screen okay?
Yep.
Cool. And 39 and 40 here, by default, they just have question marks in here. But these are those API keys for Sketchfab and for Tenor, which allow you, when you're in your world, let me go back to my URL here. To place things like a 3D model from Sketchfab. So I've just gone to the place button and then the 3D model button. And since we don't have an API key configured, there are no search results. So that API key lets us look through Sketchfab and then place any models that we might find. So no results there currently. Additionally, if we go to place and then GIF, there aren't going to be any search results in there as well. So what we want to do is kind of get it to where the demo server is. Where when you click this, you're able to search through Sketchfab, and you're also able to search for different GIFs as well. So let's start with Sketchfab. So the first thing you'll need is a Sketchfab account, which I thought I had open here, but maybe I closed out of it. So we can go to sketchfab.com, and I'm already signed in with my account. But to get your API key, it's under Settings, and then Password and API. I'm not going to show it just because I don't want to have to worry about changing this credential after the fact. So I'm just going to pull my screen over here. And when we get to it, I will run and add my specific API key. But for those of you who do follow this tutorial, if you're watching online or if you're currently in the room following along, it's very clear when you click this password and API tab where your API key is. It's a long string of kind of different characters. But we'll basically grab that and copy and paste it in here for the Sketchfab API key. Now for Tenor, this is a little bit different. Um, API keys for Google services aren't, I don't believe they're available um, straight through the documentation for Tenor. So if we go to Tenor, I have an account in there, I believe. Sorry, so I don't have an account. It's associated with my Google account. And for today, I've decided to use my personal Google account, signing in here. But you can see in this interface for Tenor, there's only documentation about the Tenor GIF API. If we look in here, let me see, I think I can click go to docs. It's going to send me to the actual developer docs in here. So, and then it's going to direct me to the Google Cloud Console and to get a Tenor API GIF. Let me kind of go through this first. Sorry, folks. I'm realizing here I need to sign in again with my personal account. Um, if I tried to use my Mozilla account, it would make me. One sec. Okay. I'm almost there. Sorry for the delay. For some reason, I'm getting stuck into an infinite sign-in loop. Let's see what's happening here. I'm trying to use my personal account here. Yeah, but I'm getting it stuck in here. Let me try signing in with an incognito browser. Sorry again for the delay, folks. Okay, I've finally gotten through to two-step verification, so I'm almost signed in. So Imagineer, I think there are limits associated with them, probably rate limits. I would look a little bit deeper into the docs, but I know that yeah, I think it just depends on how uh, much you're using them, like most APIs do. But that's okay. So I'm still on my personal account for the Tenor API. I'm going to click enable, so I haven't enabled it for this account yet. Great. Then I believe I go to credentials here. Credentials, not that. Let me look a little bit deeper at the docs here. Okay, so I'm actually going straight through the documentation here. I've signed in and I'm able to do it straight in here to get an API key. I'm going to create a new project called HCCE setup session. Click next. Uh, and just as a reminder, I always do it in these videos. I will delete this credential after the fact, so don't attempt to use it. I'm hiding my Sketchfab API key because I don't want to delete this credential. But for today, I am going to just go ahead and share my Tenor API key. Great. So let's see if I can get any information on like rate limits here. Okay. Additional rate resources, rate limits, and caching. So Imaginer here it says Tenor API keys have a rate limit of 1 API request per second. It looks like you have to request a specific rate limit increase, which I imagine there would be some cost associated with that. Cool. So we've got our Sketchfab key, I'm about to put it in, and then our Tenor API key. Now I'm going to just update and apply this to my Kubernetes stack. So as I said, I'm gonna I'll walk through the steps now and then actually run them off screen. But my command will be kubectl apply -f. Oh, sorry. Backing up. First, I've only edited this straight in the render hcce.sh file. I actually need to run that again so that it updates my hcce.yaml file. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Dash render hcce.sh. I'm going to run that. Okay. And let's just go through real quick. And see if we can get that tenor. Yeah, so we can see that's now included in our hcce.yaml file, which we'll be using to apply to our, we'll use that to apply straight to our stack. So I'm going to run this again off screen with my actual value, and then I'll run my apply command, which once again is kubectl apply -f hcce.yaml and then our namespace. And for today, I'm using hcce-Mike Moran as my namespace. So I'm going to run this quickly off screen just so that I can protect that Sketchfab API key. Does anyone have any questions to this point? Cool. No questions? Okay. So I've just finished applying my new configuration file. I likely need to do some recycling of my pods for this change to actually take effect. So let's actually just delete our, I believe it's just our, well, let's delete all of our pods just so that we can be sure. But kubectl get pods, oh, namespace. All right, all of our pods are currently running, so I'm going to run kubectl delete pods --all. Oh, namespace. Sorry, y'all. Always forget that. So all of our pods are deleted. I Command C out of this and then get pods, I should see them all in the status of terminating or coming back online. Today I'm also working with my lens interface, which allows me to see this in a more graphical way. So I am watching this at the same time. I'm just going to wait for all of those old pods to finish terminating and then to see green on all of our new pods. I think we're just waiting on reticulum here. Cool. Everything looks good. I'm going to refresh my room. Then, if everything has gone well, I should be able to see my Sketchfab again now in here. Yep. So I now have my Sketchfab API integrated, and if I try and place one, let's do this water gun. It's quite dark in this space, but we do see this water gun is now in here. Let's also do a GIF. Oh, no results. What is happening here? Going to open up here and see if I can see any issues. Have I used the wrong credential? So I'm going to look at my reticulum logs as I am trying to make that request to see if there are any uh, issues with that API key. I should, if it's not validated, I should see some sort of command of like not authorized or I'm using the wrong API key. So let's do kubectl get just these kubectl get logs, and then my okay. So let's see in here. This looks promising. Let's see here. Perhaps not. This looks like an avatar issue. Okay, I'm going to try to refresh and reconnect and see if I can run this again as I try and make that request. So I'm not seeing any specific issues here. Let me check one thing on my credential, which should still be in here. Okay, so I've created this API key. I'm just going to change the name so I know which one it is. Um, let's do HCCE tenor API. And sometimes I am going to go ahead and restrict it just so that only has access to some APIs, and I'm just going to select the tenor API. I'm wondering if that might be the issue. And then I'm going to put no restrictions on the type of application. I'll copy this once more just to make sure I've copied and pasted it correctly. But I do see that here everything looks correct on this API key. Maybe I can check if there are any analytics on it or any feedback. Just a moment. Just for safe measure, I've reapplied the file and am deleting all of the pods to cycle out real quick to see if I need to do anything else for it to take effect. I'm going to refresh, but I'm also going to clear my local storage. It still looks like I might be having some trouble here. I have one more thing to check just in case. Okay, I'm going to check one more thing here. Alrighty, just for the sake of time, I do want to go ahead and move on, but I need to dive a little bit deeper into this to see the reason why that tenor API key is, unless anyone else has any thoughts about things to check here. But I can do a little bit of a deeper dive and get a definitive answer after the fact.
Could we check DevTool network tab if it gives us some clue?
Good call. See that here. Let's see here. So I'm seeing them here, these 404 errors. I want to see how far back they go. Okay. Any thoughts, Rashad, other things to check? I think my guess is that it likely has to do with the API key itself, which maybe we should check back at the docs quickly. Awesome. Thanks, John. See you later. Alrighty. I might go ahead and have us move on, just in case, but I can get a more definitive answer on this. Sorry, folks, that it's not working out in in the room. I'm glad the Sketchfab one works at least, but I think there's a little bit more to dig into on the tenor side uh, for me to get an answer on. Any objections to kind of moving on? Cool. Ah, let's continue to Forge on, where I want to talk a little bit about calling an external API in general, which um, just like the API keys for Tenor and for Sketchfab, there used to be a interface in the admin panel for Hub's cloud users to specify extra content security policies that allowed you to connect to an external URL. Um, and here I've documented it at the very bottom of this quick start guide. But All of this can be done in the config map for Reticulum. So I'll show how to edit that directly. I'll also show you, I believe, in the HCCE YAML file here. One moment. Okay. In our HCCE YAML file, under the Reticulum pod section, we do have our config TOML template, which is our config map for Reticulum. So if you want to, before applying your YAML file, you can just scroll down here until you start to see this add CSP section. And here you'll see a lot of the values that you would be familiar with on the admin of Hub's Cloud, including things like your connect source and your image source or your script source. And you can see here there are some pre-populated ones, mainly the ones that are needed for streaming and for connecting to pods like NearSpark. Um, so for I think maybe for this tutorial, I showed like how you could connect to OpenAI. I'm trying to think of a good one for us to test out today when we deploy a custom client. Does anyone have a special request for trying out some sort of API? No? Well, maybe we can try out. I would need to grab an API key from OpenAI, but it could be a fun one to try out. Let me think of another uh, interesting one. Let's see, Rithik. What have you put in here? Okay, great. So this is just. Yeah, okay. So let's go ahead and put this domain in there, and then when we get to the end of our custom client section, we can see that. So going back up here, just in the script source, I think is where I need it. I can just paste that, and if I wanted to have multiple connection points, I would just put a space in between each of them. No commas, no. Um, uh, yeah, it's just a space between each of them, so it would look something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and save and apply. And then when we get to actually deploying our custom client, we can uh, try out that API. Okay. I'm going to take a quick sip of water, and then we'll move on to that custom client stuff. Any questions before we move on from that?
Um, yeah, Michael. What exactly is this? Like, are we specifying a new API here that we'll be using, and then we'll need to provide a key for it in some spot later, or like, what exactly is script source doing for us?
So let me see if I can demonstrate it just by doing this in the browser, developer tools. But let me see if I can do this here. What method would be available for us? I guess. Let me think for one moment. See if I can do a fetch request in here. And then I guess we can. So I think I've demonstrated it here of I'm just running this command in my console. I actually don't know what this API will necessarily give me back, but just a fetch command of, hey, if I wanted to run this from my client, I could try, but my network tab will tell me that I'm in violation of those content security policies. Now, so imagine, or this is a long way of answering your question. What we're doing here is we're just whitelisting this domain to tell hubs, hey, it's okay to get resources and call this domain's API, this server's API to get this resource. So you might think that, well, why wouldn't that be enabled by default? It's a security thing, right? For anyone to be able to come in and, call an external API as a developer, you want to be able to kind of control that whitelist of which ones folks can call to.
Okay, thank you.
And Michael, I have another question.
Yes.
I saw in your screenshot there was this server nearspark.reticulum.io.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a Mozilla server or is it a public server? I was a bit
Yes.
confused
So
about
I
it.
was
If it's
going
a
to.
Mozilla server, will it disappear? Yeah.
Yeah, so it is currently pointing to a Mozilla service, and I should say NearSpark and YouTube Downloader are both pointing to Mozilla services. I don't know if YouTube Downloader is implemented directly into Community Edition yet, like if there's a placeholder value in there, but I know those are two services that, at least at a documentation level, I think Mozilla owes the community an explanation for those services since they are very popular ones. Now, we're going to go down a bit of a rabbit hole here, but yesterday Rashed came in and started asking about this issue creating links on a new server. So if we go here, what's a good example here? Let's try. So this is from Pocket. And if I just copy and paste, I should see this resolve in just a moment, unless it goes wrong. Oh, it's taking a moment, so maybe I'll try a different one. So let's try just google.com. That should come up just fine. Oh, I have frozen. Has anyone else? Sorry, folks, I just froze for some reason. Sharing my screen again. So it should just be google.com. Oh, So it does resolve in there. I think Google is one that's kind of enabled by default. I'm trying to think of another one that we were having trouble with yesterday. Rashed or Imaginer, did you remember any of the ones that we were dealing with yesterday?
Hubs.mozilla.com doesn't resolve.
Sure. Let's try going to Spoke. I want to avoid
That's
using
Uh-oh.
hubs.mozilla.com just because it is, like I said, it's having some trouble, but it is technically the same domain that we're currently on. Um, what was one of the others we were testing?
GitHub. The
Great.
main page of
Yes,
GitHub doesn't
GitHub.
work, but subpages do.
Hmm. So maybe let's go to my repo. So here's my
Yeah,
fork of hubs. I'm pasting in here. It should resolve just fine. So we've able to get that up in here, but
there we go.
in my community edition instance, okay, that is surprising that it's doing it. I think it's because it is working with the existing Mozilla NearSpark pod. So Vince, long way of answering your question. It is working with this NearSpark reticulum.io. However, we are having some troubles with just kind of failing to resolve some of those images.
I know the issue on the community edition as well, and yeah, I also have it with the nearest part of the ticket.io, but maybe that's another issue for later in this meeting.
Mhm.
And,
So let me go ahead and share what Gung, who handles our system, shared with us. So, sorry, y'all. I think I've been mentioning the wrong service here. Um, Photonemonic is the one that Gung believes is having trouble. So not actually near Spark, but Photonemonic is required, and it's not currently available in Community Edition. So I believe the one that we have running in here is also one that is just a Mozilla run service. Let me see here. Hmm. So we can see here in our configuration here under Reticulum, we have YouTube Downloader Host and then Photonemonic. These are both services that are currently hard coded. They're run by Mozilla, but of course, once everything is kind of shut down, um, we will want to have an officially endorsed way of replacing these. YouTube Downloader, as I've mentioned in the past, is not doesn't officially conform to uh, the YouTube terms of service. So there's a little bit of debate about what's the best way to show the community how we've used it in the past without officially endorsing something that goes against YouTube's terms of service. However, Photonemonic, we should be able to release a bit of more of a tutorial on.
okay, thanks.
So, in case anyone is interested, here is Mozilla's fork of Photonemonic. All right. Where were we? I think we were close to beginning to test out this custom client deployment pipeline, right? Well, let's give it a shot. Um, So this I've also added at the very bottom of this quick start tutorial under the section deploying custom apps. So I'll start off by saying there are a large number of code bases that go into Community Edition. Basically, every single one of the pods that is running has a unique code base that can be customized. And just as a recap for anyone who has not been to a previous meeting, if we look up here, this is under the Reticulum pod. Oh, sorry, no, this is actually under the Postgres pod, but there are these mentions of public Mozilla Reality Docker images that all instances pull from automatically. So if you're setting up your own Community Edition instance for the first time, it does track with these images that Mozilla is running. Now, with the shutdown, you'll obviously want to likely move away from those Mozilla resources. In fact, before the shutdown concludes, we'll likely change the Community Edition repo to point away from these by default and towards something else, or we'll document it from the very top of Community Edition that you'll want to specify these as part of the setup process. So just know right now by default you do track with Mozilla run repos that don't just exist automatically, they are hosted on Docker Hub. But basically the process we'll be going through is setting up your own version of one of these images, and the process should be the same for any of the code bases that you're going to use. We're going to be doing this with the Hubs client, the repo that many consider just to be Hubs, but it is just the front end here. And this is most similar to deploying a custom client with Hubs Cloud. But like I said, the workflow should be pretty much identical across any of the code bases that you want to deploy a customized version of, like Reticulum, Dialog, Spoke, or any of the others that make up a Community Edition instance. Awesome. So to get started, I have forked the Mozilla Hubs repo, and I'm going to copy it down to my instance. To my locally to my device. So just in here, I'm going to change directory, then clone this down. Take a moment to get set up. Going to change directory back into Hubs. And I'm not going to worry about setting up local development right now. In the future, you might consult a tutorial on Hubs Compose. For now, we could install our node packages and then run npm run dev, which runs the client up against Mozilla's Reticulum server. For now, I know kind of the basic update I want to make that should work. Of course, in the future, for anyone developing a proper feature, you'll want to test it locally before deploying. But just for today, I'm going to do a very simple customization, which I've documented in the past. I'm going to go to hub.js, which is the main file that kind of executes at runtime. And so I can count on it running whatever code I want. And just at the very top, I'm going to do a console log testing custom client deployment. Awesome. I'm going to save that, and then I'm actually going to check out a new branch. I probably should have done that just before actually making the customization, but I'll create a branch as I'm doing it. So git checkout -b for creating a branch, and I'll call it HCCE setup session. Yeah, I'll call it that. Great. I'm going to add my edits. I'm going to commit them. Commit for setup session. And then I'm going to push back to that origin. Whoop. Sorry. Okay. Coming back to GitHub, I should get a notification that I've pushed, oh, or maybe not. Let's actually look through my branches and I can see that there is a setup session branch in here with one commit. Should be a commit ahead here, 2 commits ahead. That's strange. I expected to see, oh, failed to push some references. For some reason, it doesn't look like my edits were properly committed. I'm going to go through the commit process again. Okay, there we go. I don't know why that had some trouble. Git push origin HCC setup session. Then, great. So I got a notification there that I actually had a update. And if we look at that commit, it's just that. Great. Testing custom client deployment comment line. So why am I doing this in GitHub? Well, I'm showing you the way that the Hubs team does it using GitHub Actions. I'm doing it this way just to show you the way that we currently, what our kind of our pipeline for posting these edits to our public repos is. But that being said, you could do this in a number of different ways. But that's why I'm working in GitHub in case anyone had any questions about why I'm doing it this way. One more thing to get set up, and I've documented it here, is we need to add some code that says what to do in our GitHub workflows. So I have a copy of it here. I think it actually even lives in the code that I reference here actually lives in my fork. So we should already see it here, but basically the workflow would be to go to .github workflows and then create a file. I call it ce-build.yml, and then populate it with that code. So you can copy this code from me. And this code will, we need to configure a few secrets here, but it basically builds the entire Hubs client and then pushes it to be public on Docker Hub, which is Docker's kind of hosting service for these public images. Great. So now we actually need to set up these configurations for our Docker Hub. So I already have a Docker Hub account, and I'm going to create a new repo for this. You may have just seen some of my older repos, but let's go ahead and create a new one. So let's say HCCE setup session, short description, public hubs image for setup session testing customization. Okay, should create it. Great. So great, we have our endpoint here. I don't think we need to edit anything in here. However, we do need to, I think the next step is to configure our secrets here in the secrets and variables of our GitHub actions. So I'm first going to just go to actions. If I go to a new workflow, I think I have customized the name here a bit. Sorry, folks. I'm looking at some of my old workflows here, but I'm trying to identify why it's not picking up this this one in here. Sorry for the background noise, folks. One moment. Sorry about that, folks. Alrighty. So going back in here, I'm expecting if I go to actions to see a workflow mentioned here called CE. Let me see if I can grab that real quick. Set up a workflow yourself. No, I don't know why it's having trouble, but maybe we need to walk through the steps again just in case. So I'll grab that code in here again. I'm going to copy it all. I'm going to go back here to set up a workflow yourself, and we can call this HCCE deploy. Then I'm going to enter the same contents as my YAML file. I'll commit my changes, and this should take effect. I don't know why it's having trouble on mine. So going back to actions, I should see, okay, so this is the one, this CE one right here. If I go back to my workflows and back to HCCE deploy, at the very top, I can see the name which appears in my workflow, in my actions. So I have it specified as CE for Community Edition here, and if I go back to actions, there's now a CE workflow for me to use. So this is the workflow that I'm going to trigger to be able to send my code to my Docker Hub. But first, I need to configure my secrets. I'm not going to show all of them right here, but when I go to the Settings tab of my repo, and then I go to Secrets and Variables. I think in the dropdown, I will need to select Actions. I'm going to do this off screen. I'll describe what's happening, and I'll share if I'm able to here. So I am able to share this right now, but if we open back up our workflow, sorry, wrong one. At the very bottom here, we're going to see that's going to be asking for a number of variables. And we need our username and password for our Docker Hub credentials. Inputs means that it's going to, when we run our action, it's going to ask us for it at the time that we're running it. Secrets is what it's going to be drawing from settings. So we only need to configure one secret here, which we do so in our repository secrets. I'm not going to update mine since I have already configured it, but you'll want to name it docker_hub_pwd or whatever you have it named in here, and then you'll want to save it. On Docker Hub, to get this secret, there are a few different ways you can scope your secrets. You can either enter your full password for your account, or you can, I think if you go to My Account and Security, you can create new access tokens. So for me, I've created this one right here, my private HCCE repo. I created it a few months ago, but that will give you the key that you then put into, sorry, one second, that you put into your repository secrets. Great. Now, if I go back to actions, everything should be set up correctly. And so now we can actually walk through the process of deploying. I'm going to select my CE workflow, I'm going to go to Run Workflow. And then if you're working on a separate branch like I am right here, you're going to have to type that in to make sure that it draws from that code. Oh dear, okay. And I've run into an issue here, which is I don't have this new workflow in the branch where I want to run it. So I'll need to add that as well. Let me go back in here. I'm gonna go back to my workflows here and add that same HCCE deploy.yaml. Great. And it was just copying from the C build.yaml. For some reason, GitHub is having trouble picking that up, but I'm gonna commit that code. Can everyone still hear me okay? I think I may have lost audio for a moment.
I can hear you.
Great. All right, so I've just committed it. I'm going to refresh my browser, and then if I select from the HCCE setup session, I should now have this set up in here. Alrighty. Then I want to quickly refresh my memory here. Okay. Version Docker file. So when you're actually filling out these inputs, you'll see here that it asks you for your Docker Hub username. Mine is Mike Moran. And then the registry that you want to push it to. And I've been kind of using registry and image interchangeably. It's not the same thing. The registry is where my image of the of hubs is going to be set up. And so I'm actually going to, I believe, I will just put in HCCE setup session here. Sorry, it's been a moment since I've done this, and as this is running, we should see it begin running in just a second. It will take about 10 minutes, but I'm going to review one of my previous deploys here to make sure I've got this right. Let's check on my Docker Hub to see how things are going here. Completely lost the position of my, oh, here we are. Okay. So it might not come through yet until we get finished with the deployment process. I'm just going to follow along. Like I said, it probably will take about 10 minutes or so to deploy. I found that that's a little bit faster than the deployment process for Hubs Cloud if you went through an NPM CI each time that you were going through it. But just know that the deployment process on this is about 10 minutes or so. Any questions while we wait and see?
I had a question regarding the thumbnail. Did you whitelist some URL in your C version? As it seems thumbnail is working in your C version.
So I did not, when you were seeing that here, this GitHub version here. I think the issue, Rashid, is still that um, Photodemonic is using a Mozilla Run service. And so I don't think it's as simple as whitelisting a URL to get the thumbnail. It's the pod itself that's still having trouble.
I was quickly looking to the repo you shared, Michael, and I saw it was AWS Lambda repo.
Yep.
We're running Hub C on Azure. Could that be an issue?
So what Gung has told me is another reason why it's having trouble is because Photodemonic currently requires an S3 API compatible bucket. So when we were designing Community Edition, our goal was for it to be as accessible on as many platforms as possible. But right now, our version of Photodemonic, as you've seen there, is kind of designed for AWS and that Lambda function. So I believe that is one of the issues in terms of kind of cross compatibility here.
That would explain a lot, yeah. That would also explain why maybe some other people don't see it.
Yes. Yeah. Any other questions while we're waiting on this code to compile?
If nobody's has any, I also want to get back a bit on the YouTube feature.
Mm-hmm.
We want to move away from it, but we currently cannot migrate because we know people have built spaces or teachers have built spaces with YouTube videos. So we need a way to move them to either embed them or move them somewhere else. Yeah, it would be great if there's some sort of way that we can temporarily set up our own service or find a way to restore it. Or, as you said, you already made.
Sorry, Vince, you cut out for a moment. Keep going.
Yeah, I hope I'm still there. No, you already said that you were looking at that, but that would be really great if there's some sort of help there to restore that for a while to get everybody over.
Gotcha. Yes, I think I personally am in favor of us going ahead and showing how we did it with YouTube Downloader if people want to set up their own versions of the service. I know there was reasons other than just the what's it called? The terms of service, it not being in line with YouTube's official terms of service that we chose not to do it. It was also I believe it was a significant risk of denial of service attacks was one of the reasons that we tried to start moving away from YouTube Downloader. But I think it's still worthwhile to show how we were doing it so that any developer who's using Community Edition can go ahead and be aware of the way that we did do it and make that informed decision about using a risky service like that. Vince, are you talking about your users that are hoping to migrate? Can you tell me a little bit more information there? Who are these Hubs Cloud users or people who are using the demo?
They were Hubs Cloud users, and they built, for example, spaces for their classes, like primary teachers, and they built spaces around specific topics, and a lot of the times they include YouTube videos in a gallery or something, or like that. And they built it on our Hubs Cloud service. So, and because we sold them a license for a year, we still have to support them for a while. So yeah, we can. I mean, we can put those videos in the pop-up or something. So there are ways to circumvent that, but it would mean that we have to update all the spaces or all the rooms they've made. And it will also be a different experience. Or we need to host the videos, which is all fine. But yeah, it's just a way of how to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gotcha. And
And the
the
teachers, of course, don't have ownership of the videos also. So that's also something it's not something they can upload the video to an hosting service just because they're not the owner.
gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know the answer either. But
I've encountered an error, and I think it is. Oh, gotcha. Okay. I see what the problem is here. Yep. Okay. So I've made an error in how I've specified my registry that it was asking for. I had made this in the past, but it's been a moment since I've set this up again. But anyway, you can see this error here. It's trying to push to HCCE setup session /CE. And if I look at my Docker Hub here, we can see that I actually want to push it to Mike Moran /HCCE setup session. So I need to make a couple of edits to fix that. Let me show you. First of all, I can change the name up here to HCCE. I believe it's just all one word setup session. So that's updating the workflow itself, which will change the name of the repo. So I'm going to add that now. Great. And coming back here, I'm going to go back to my actions. Should be able to do HCCE setup session. Great. And now, instead of, if you'll recall for the registry, I had specified HCCE setup session. That's actually incorrect. I need to specify Mike Moran. So when I created my account, it sets up this registry namespace by default with the same name as my username. I can create a new repository that does not use that namespace. However, for here, I'll want to just specify that. So once again, keep code path blank, username is that, and then our registry will want to be the same as my username. Now we're going through that slightly adjusted. Everything else that looked like with the old build worked fine. It was just not able to target an existing Docker Hub registry. Any more questions while we're waiting on things? I need to get a nice ambient music while we're waiting. Perhaps while we're waiting, we could maybe start writing some code for number one, testing out that whitelisted API, but then also maybe adding a custom feature like a fallback if a URL chooses not to resolve. So in Hubs, let's open up. Let's just copy paste the Hubs URL here that we're having some trouble with. So when I get that, I see that it's coming from this media loading TS file. If I look in here, it's rendering this error object. So I might want to customize that so it's a little bit more usable here. Like for instance, this error object, if I want to actually access the URL that's associated with that, it doesn't have this open link button like I would kind of like it to. Actually, I have to hover and then click the open link button to get it. So maybe for a feature we could add, we could just have some sort of default image on our error object, and then actually still preserve this open link button. So let's try and make that kind of customization here. Maybe y'all can help me a little bit. So I'm going to go to the media loading folder here, and I'm in the wrong repo. I think that's should be within utils. Let's just search for it. Then let's find our error object. Okay, so here's the lines 219 through 294 that we might want to do a nice little update for. And we can see that this will render anytime any of this code fails. Load by media type. I'm trying to think if we should, well, maybe not. Let's look at our error object first. So that's coming from a prefab that we've already set up. Maybe we can customize that, or we could have something a little bit more sophisticated. Let's maybe start with this error object, or maybe add a condition if one specific part of this fails. Let's look at this resolve media info method real quick under media utils. So it looks like our URL that we're getting from this image is the one that's having trouble whenever we try and load in here. Sorry, I should say the URL is the one that's having the trouble here. And that's interesting. It's calling this create image texture, which I think means that it's making it a little bit further down than I was thinking. Let's go back to media loading and see where if it's referenced. Bet you this.
Okay, the issue comes on media util line 49.
Sorry, one moment, Rashed. Can you repeat that for me?
I shared the link on the chat. where the issue is occur usually. Resolve URL function 59599. Yes,
Gotcha.
this fails.
Gotcha. And gotcha. I see that there. I think just for time's sake, I might go ahead and edit this prefab that we have in here. Let's see. All right, see you, Vince. Good to see you. I wonder if we could in the future add in a prop for this error to tell to render out when we're having trouble with external URL. Let me see here. Before diving into that, let me check and make sure, see if my build has completed. Okay, it looks like it still has a little bit of a ways to go. Let's see what's in the load texture file. Alrighty. Okay, so I found the asset that we have here for our default. It's this media error PNG in our assets. Great. So we could go ahead and replace that. Ideally in the future we would maybe customize it to only load when we give it the specific issue, but let's go ahead and replace that for fun. What should be our default image to
A duck,
update?
of course.
A duck? Okay. What kind of duck?
Yes, a duck will be better.
Salmonida?
How about like a bunch of ducks? Floating
Sure,
around.
that would be good.
Just gonna grab this straight from the internet, so there we go. And did it come out as a PNG? Let's see. here's our little duck image. I'm going to export as a PNG. Great, and we've got our ducks here. So let's go ahead and rename this. We can call it old. We'll rename this media error PNG. So it's a much prettier, nicer media error PNG. And so just if this is all we're doing, it should render out differently, but I really want to be able to have it so that we don't have to hover and then click the open link button. So ideally I would want to be able to have this hoverable open link button if possible, but that might be a little bit outside of what we have time for today. Let's see if we can do it quickly. The reason I'm also moving a little bit slow on this is, what's it called? My lack of familiarity with BitECS as well. So I'm moving a little bit slower on that. So I think it's this accessible URL on the media info that creates that hoverable pop-up. If we go, yes, let's look at the media info component. Here we go. The media info bit component. Okay. I guess it's more in this, maybe more in this load media type. Yes. So we have a load image function from load image. Okay. I wonder if we can just load image, pass in I suppose we could even pass in data of an externally hosted URL. Let's see if we can hack this together quickly and try deploy, and we'll see if it works. So I'm going to go back to this error object message. So instead of it's nice to have that error object, but instead in here I'm going to how should we do this? So that's what's failing. Oh my goodness, we only have 12 minutes left. Okay, sorry y'all. I didn't realize the time was moving so quickly. I'm gonna do this just very hackish way of doing it. So apologies for wanting to move quickly. I didn't realize how short we were on time. Adding new error object image. Quick and dirty. Okay. And following up on our last publish, it looks like everything was complete. So before publishing our new image, I'm going to go back to my server and just refresh. And at the very top, I should be able to see, actually, no, I won't be able to see because we need to recycle the pods and make sure that we get those edits from there. So, and we also need to point our pod to the updated we'll want to point it to our updated image in here. So I'm going to go back to my hcce.yaml and look for stable latest and scroll through until I find hubs. Now this is the one that I want to replace with our new value. And I'm going to look back at Docker Hub. I look in here. I do have a build in here. I basically just want to take this and as we reviewed kind of a couple weeks ago, you can either do the individual tag of the build or latest. For today, I'm going to do the tag of the latest build just so that I can control versioning as much as possible. I'm going to kubectl apply -f hcce.yaml. Oops. Also need to specify my namespace. Oh, and I am in the wrong.
Look into image pull policy.
So, Rithik, I think that just by changing this, I don't have to update the image pull policy. Am I incorrect on that?
Yeah, typically we had to change that to always, image pull
Yeah.
policy to always.
Okay, let's change it to always. I think the first time you change it, if you like make a major change from one registry to another, it will go ahead and do it, but I can look a little
Yeah,
bit
I
deeper
think
into
if you're changing the tag name, then I think it should work without the image pull policy, but just for the safer side,
yeah.
so that
So
every time you have the latest changes.
So if we have time, which I'm realizing we might not to, but time to build and deploy that new error image, we could, if we wanted to change from 2 to 3, which would be the next build in the cycle, we would want to change this image pull policy to make sure that we always get the version that is specified in here, even if there's already an image that exists in there. Let's
Oh, okay, cool, thanks.
So Rithik, I'm just cycling through my pods here. I'm gonna wait for those to finish terminating. Looks like I'm still waiting on Reticulum in here. see. Okay, so I've put a filter on it so it's kind of very visible. But if we scroll through our console log, we do see at Hub.js 1 testing custom client deployment, which was the main customization that we've published so far. We have 5 minutes left. Oh, goodness. But if we wanted to go through that again, basically I have pushed my edits to that error object image to the repo, and I would just run the action again to go through it. So I would select HCCE setup session, select my branch, and then do Mike Moran twice, press run workflow, and after about 10 minutes, it would be ready to go, and I would just have to cycle through my pods once again, I believe. So I think, Rithik, no matter what, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong here, you will always have to cycle your pods to tell them to enforce that image pull policy. You do have to do some sort of cycling to make an update. But if your image pull policy isn't correct, you may even cycle those pods and nothing will happen. No new image will be pulled down as you're doing that cycling.
Okay, cool. This was like quite an interesting thing, the image pull policy, because we
Yes,
thought that. Go on.
Alex Gregory said it.
What's that, Rashid?
Yes, Alex Gregory in previous meeting mentioned that it make a cache version of the image, so it doesn't pull the image. It just update the. I mean, you are correct as you said.
Mhm. So just reading straight from the docs, the image pull policy for a container in the tag of the image effect when Kubernetes will attempt to pull down the specified image. Here's a list of the values you can set for image pull policy and the effects these values have. If not present, the image is pulled only if it is not already present locally. So I think what this means is regardless of the tag of your image, if your image is there, it's not going to update it. If it's already there. Always, every time a kubelet launches a container, the kubelet queries the container image registry to resolve the name to an image digest. If kubelet has a container image that with that exact digest cached locally, the kubelet uses its cached image. Otherwise, kubelet pulls the image with the resolved digest, uses that image to launch the container. Okay. The caching semantics of underlying image provider make even image pull policy always efficient, as long as the registry is reliably accessible. Your container runtime can notice that the image layers already exist on the node so that they do not need to be downloaded again. To make sure that pod always uses the same version of a container image, you can specify the image's digest. Replace. Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay, maybe here's some good information. When using image tags, if the image registry were to change the code that that tag on the image represents, you might end up with a mix of pods running the old and new code. An image digest uniquely identifies a specific version of the image, so Kubernetes runs the same code every time it starts a container with that image name and digest specified. Hmm. But I'm trying to go a little bit deeper into what an image digest is, but I'm pretty confident that, like I said, each time you change, apologies, 1 second. Sorry about that, folks. Each time you make a change and deploy an edit, just using the simple file deployment command that we've shown, you will have to recycle your pods or roll out the deployment in order for the change to take effect. But it seems like if the image pull policy is not always, older versions of the image may persist even after making those recycling your pod or deleting it to make it restart because it's cached on the virtual machine, not on the individual pod. All right, folks. We're coming to the end of time today. I think looking forward, let me pull up my little list here. Um, in future sessions, I would love to go over topics such as persistent volumes, Hubs Compose, migrating data from a Hubs Cloud instance to a Community Edition instance, cost-effective external databases. So I know that Alex, in his tutorials, he puts together how to use an external database um, on GCP and AWS in a managed Kubernetes environment. I want to explore at least one other option in one of these sessions. And then I was also thinking of CI/CD like Mozilla. So just like today, I've shown you how Mozilla deploys a custom version of our code bases using Docker. Um, I would love to show kind of how we've set up our production versus development versus staging environments as well for anyone who is thinking of doing more of a in-depth development, not just hacking around custom features, but having a more of a pipeline for deploying. I think that could be a useful thing to show the way that the Hubs team does that. Please feel free to suggest other topics as well. I'm always open if you have questions or suggestions or thoughts in the community edition thread of our Discord channel. Yeah, but I hope this has been useful at least to show kind of how to make your very first customizations to Hubs by deploying a custom client. And like I said, the process should be repeatable for any of the code bases that you would like to use. Anything else before I cease the recording? I'm gonna go ahead and stop that
I had
now. Oh yes, Rithik.
yeah, just for a part of query related to persistent volumes, like the reticulum stores most of the data, uh, like the GLB files and stuff. The URLs are stored on reticulum basically. Like if we don't have those URLs, we will not have that access. The user accounts and everything else, like basically Postgres is just supporting reticulum. So I wanted to know that the GLB files that we have, are we converting it into binary and storing it in Postgres? Like I've heard people say that before. uh, might be
A bit of
imaginary to
both in depending on the circumstance where you're using it. I think that's different versus deploying something or publishing something through Spoke versus uploading an avatar versus just kind of dragging and dropping it into the space. But yes, I think there exists a binary version of it when you upload it.
Okay, so basically, like I was trying to understand that if we have a shared Postgres database, that means people can, or everyone, like if there are 2 3 people who are using the same Postgres database with the same password and stuff, then they would be able to uh, store all the data in one place with a different reticulum password for their configuration, the reticulum and the Phoenix key, whatever they set in render hcc.yml for the reticulum. That
Are you
means they
thinking
can use.
are you thinking multiple
Yeah.
individual users or multiple reticulum servers, like multiple hubs
Yeah,
instances?
I'm thinking of, no,
Can you
I'm thinking of multiple hubs instances. Yes.
Gotcha. I don't know specifically. I know it is possible, and it's what we do with our managed subscription. There are many hubs instances all storing to the same database. So yes, it is possible. I don't know how configured the existing community edition code is for that, but that would be a worthwhile thing to explore in
Yeah,
our
I think
topic of. Sorry, go ahead, Ritik.
yes. The only motive for that would be like, see, right now I've shared some parts of article with you of how the persistent volume things I'm approaching across, and by this weekend I'm completing persistent volume on a S3 bucket, like storing all the data on a S3 bucket with proper keys and stuff.
That's wonderful. Would you be able to show us next week?
Voice, would I be able to?
Sorry, Ritik, you cut out pretty badly for me there. Can you repeat what you just said?
uh, yeah, actually, I'm not in a. So, okay, could you please repeat your question? Would I be able to?
Would you be willing to show us how you've set up persistent volumes next week?
Yeah, sure. I would definitely love that.
Wonderful. Well, we'll plan on it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording for today.